Ladies and gentlemen, if you will silence your phones, we're going to start in a couple of minutes. Put your phones on silent. We're just connecting with the radio station because we also are going to be on live on radio station WEHA 88.7 and 100.3 for our program. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for coming to the Atlantic City Branch NAACP Candidates Night. Firstly, let me thank Reverend Wilson for opening this very beautiful church to us. Again, this year we were here last year for the Candidates Night, and we're here again this year, so I want to thank Reverend Wilson and thank all the officers and members for letting us come again this year. Atlantic City Branch NAACP has 2 candidate nights per year. We have a candidates night before the primary, which is this tonight, and we have another candidates night for the general election, which obviously is in November. Our protocol and our procedure and our practice is that we invite every candidate who is certified to be on the ballot. We invite every candidate who is certified to be on the ballot. I'm repeating that again because one of my educator friends said you have to say things 3 times so people get it. We invite every candidate who is certified to be on the ballot. And of course, we hope that they all attend. But our purpose, the NAACP, locally, on the state level, and nationally, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, which means we do not endorse candidates, but we do encourage people to be involved in the system. We encourage people to register. We encourage people to vote. And as Council President Aaron Sporty Randolph, my colleague, says, we tell people to vote their conscience. So tonight's program is put together by our Political Action Committee, and I want to thank them, Reverend Miller, who is our chair, Miriam Sorhan, who is our co-chair for their effort, Kristen Ragland, who's going to be our moderator tonight. We want to thank him and every other member of the committee, Michael Johnson, who is our perennial timekeeper. Candidates, when you see Brother Johnson in that very nice sweater, when he shows you the time, please listen, because your next thing we cut the mic. No, but that's your cues. Let me also say a big thank you to William Hawks. William Hawks and his lovely wife are the owners of radio station WEHA 88.7 and 100.3 FM. We are on live now. This whole program will be carried live, and a shameless commercial every Tuesday from 4:30 to 5:30 on WEHA. The NAACP radio program is on, and we encourage you to listen. The questions that you will hear are generated by NAACP branch members and reviewed by the Political Action Committee for their appropriateness. What does appropriateness mean? We don't tell people what to say, but we want to make sure that this forum is a forum for education and awareness. It's not a forum to catch people unaware or to embarrass people or to make headlines. It is a forum so people can decide how to exercise their right to vote. This forum is not a debate, it's a candidates night, meaning that each candidate gets the same questions, and our goal is to have the candidates express to you, the audience in the room, and the audience that is listening on the radio, their views, what they will do if they were fortunate enough to be elected, and why people should vote for them. That's the purpose of our program tonight. And as I said, every candidate is in the Democratic primary. If someone will say, well, President Shabazz, how come you didn't invite other candidates? Because in this election cycle, the primary election cycle, everyone else who was running, whether they are a Democrat or a Republican, they are running unopposed. The only seat that is contested in this primary cycle is the congressional candidate's seat. These candidates here are candidates for the congressional seat, so that's why we invited them. Obviously, it's a public meeting. Anyone can come and view the meeting, but the only candidates that will be addressed questions tonight are these candidates. When we get to the general election, we will invite every candidate who is certified to run in the general election for our candidates tonight. Without further ado, I want to introduce to you our return moderator. We tripled his salary from last year. But for those of you who know math, 3 times 0 is it. But Kristen Ragland is the co-chair of our health committee. He is in his daytime job, he is the vice president for equity and inclusion at Atlanticare, doing an excellent job in both of those fields, and he will be our moderator for tonight. Thank you again for coming. We appreciate you. Brother Hawks, thank you for allowing us to be on the radio again, all the people in the radio audience, and I believe we're on Facebook too. Yes. We're on Facebook, so if you have warrants out, that's a joke. But thank you again for coming, Kristen Ragland.
All right. It's always hard to follow our president, Councilman Shabazz. So you can all just give us a couple of minutes as we assess. Looks like everything is well. Is everyone okay over there?
Everybody's okay.
Okay. All right. And so I'm grateful that everyone is okay. We're going to move forward in today's discussion. First, let's do this. Can we give the candidates a hand for being here today? It takes great courage, great boldness, and consistent morale to stand before people and talk about why they believe they are a good candidate. And also, I'd be remiss, considering where we are in today's world, I'm grateful for democracy. I'm grateful that we can have public forums, whether we stand on either side of the aisle, we can have these conversations. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our candidates, and what I'm going to ask them to do is, after I call your name, if you don't mind giving us a brief introduction, 3 minutes. Our timekeeper, Mr. Johnson, who is a proud U.S. military veteran, will stop you. I can't determine what tactics he will use to stop you, but he is going to stop you. So we're going to start with Zach Mullock, who is going to give us a brief introduction as he prepares to share why he is a candidate for this seat.
Start my timer yet. I don't think that one worked. Well, Christian, councilman, pastor, brother, thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'll start out with this. I'm a proud NAACP member and have been for many years. I was happy to join you at the Freedom Gala a few weeks back, and actually attend our Freedom Gala in Cape May County, I think the last 5 years. And I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Zach Mullock. I'm mayor of Cape May, and I've been mayor for the last 6 years, been on city council for the last 8. I have 3 kids, 12, 10, and 7, and my wonderful wife and I are raising our kids here in South Jersey. I'm proud to tell you a little bit about myself in the community. In the community, we helped build the Harriet Tubman Museum. That's something I'm really proud of. For 2 years, I was the volunteer contractor to build the Harriet Tubman Museum in Cape May. I've been on the Atlantic Cape Community College Foundation Board for the last 10 years. And just last Monday, we were here in Atlantic County. We gave away 50 scholarships for people that are trying to better themselves, better their education, and have an equal opportunity. And that's something, I just got to tell you, is so inspiring when you're in that room with young students furthering their education and bettering themselves right here in our community. I've been on the Cape May Point Arts and Science Center board for the last several years and helped found the Cape May Point Arts and Science Center. As mayor, we've done a ton of projects. I won't go through the long list of them, but we built a firehouse, we're building a police station, we're building a seawall, we're gonna be building a desalinization plant. We've done a theater at the AME Church in Cape May that had caught fire that we turned into a community theater. And we turned the Franklin Street School into the library. I tell you all these things just to tell you a little about what we've done in the city of Cape May. We've done all those projects without a tax increase for the last 7 years. To tell you a little bit more about policy and things like that, and what inspired me to get into this race. You know, we were just discussing this. We just came from a forum at Mays Landing. And one of the things that I saw just the other day that just reminds you of why you're running. You know, I saw Donald Trump just had the Justice Department give him $1.7 billion in a slush fund to fund people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. And I just find that to be so disgusting and such obvious corruption right in our faces. Thinking about all that money that could be spent here in South Jersey for people who truly need it. So I thank you very much for having me this evening and looking forward to your questions later. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor Muller. Next up, we have Tim Alexander.
Good evening, everybody. I'm familiar with many people in this room. My name is Tim Alexander. I'm a proud member of the NAACP. It bodes well with my career choice as a civil rights attorney. A little bit about myself. I lived in Galloway Township now for about 35 years. Prior to that, we lived in Mays Landing, and of course, I grew up and went to high school in Vineland, New Jersey. This is my district. This is my home. My wife is from Salem County. We never, let me rephrase this. This is my my third run for Congress. It'll be the second time if you so choose on June 2nd to put me up against Jeff Van Drew. And I don't take that lightly. I don't take anybody's vote lightly. This is something that I wasn't really keen to do until Donald Trump and his sycophant, Jeff Van Drew, voted and passed the one big ugly bill. And that bill devastates our community, devastates on a daily basis our community with the cuts to SNAP and the Affordable Care Act subsidies and health care, Medicaid expansion. And in fact, that was the catalyst. My daughter was a police officer following my tracks, 27 years in law enforcement. She became a police officer over in Camden, was on a job, was in a very unsanitary situation. She contracted a virus as a result. She's 31, healthy girl. Ultimately, this virus attacked her heart. And over a course of a few years, she went from being a strong viral law enforcement officer to needing a heart transplant. So her mom and I were covering her bills, her expenses, but we couldn't afford her health insurance, so she had to go on Medicaid since she had to step down from her job. Medicaid did her right. She was in a hospital here in Jersey. She was getting treatment, but it wasn't moving fast enough. So we got her shipped over to UPenn. There, they got her on the transplant list in 4 days, and everything was moving forward. We get the word from the finance department that, listen, we're not going to cover this because she's from Jersey. Pennsylvania doesn't count. It's $2.7 million for the procedure, and the aftercare is a little bit more. How are you going to pay for this? So my wife and I spent the night trying to figure this out. What are we going to do? The next day, my wife was able to find a provision in Medicaid that says if you're 35 miles away from the closest hospital that could do the procedure, you could go out of state. And that's how my daughter got the surgery. That's how my daughter got the opportunity to go back to school and become an RN, and she's a nurse in Einstein up in North Philly right now. This is so important because the one big ugly bill closed that. It did away with it. The expansion's gone. The opportunities that my daughter received are gone. You get the choice of medical bankruptcy or death if you can't go somewhere you need. So that was my catapult back into this race. I have the name recognition. I have the brand. We're adding to that. I have earned 95,000 votes the last time I met up with Van Drew. So we just got to take it and close the deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Our next candidate, Terry Reese.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and for all of you that are watching and listening live. My name is Terry Reese. I'm a lifelong Atlantic County resident. I'm a single mom of 2 adult children. My daughter has struggled with significant mental and behavioral health issues for over 20 years, and I've been her advocate, not only for her health care, but also for education so that she could go through school. I worked as a member of the working class in retail was my entire career. Most of it spent right here in Atlantic City, either at the Pier, Ocean One, or at the Walk. So I usually tell people when I come into town, if I look familiar, it's because you probably saw me there. But I left that job that I loved because I loved working with people and for people, because my mom developed dementia. And her Social Security check was only $2,400 a month, which in some cases seems like a pretty good deal. But the $2,400 a month was $200 more than what Medicaid would cover for her to get in-home care, which meant I left my job so I could be her home caregiver. And I was able to keep her at home, again, being an advocate for her medical needs, speaking on her behalf when she was no longer verbal, and arranging so we could have durable medical equipment in our home so she could stay home surrounded by the people and things she loved while she battled that horrible disease. I transitioned into a career in tech, working with different tech startups, not only using my customer service skills, but because I love technology, working with developers and website designers in order to make sure customers had great experiences. And I tell you all of this because it's foundational to who I am as a person. My entire life has been spent building relationships across the aisle with different people, different ages, different races, all different kinds of demographics, to get them all to come together to work on a common goal. I've had to solve problems to discover their root causes so that we knew what we needed to do in order to move forward and not just put a Band-Aid on something. And I learned to craft viable solutions that would stand the test of time. And I decided to run for Congress a while ago, but the opportunity never arose. And then a year ago, my son convinced me that now was the time. I was done taking care of people. My mom had passed. My daughter was functioning on her own. It was now time for Terry to do something for Terry. And I decided to run because our government is broken. It is being funded by people with a lot of money on both sides of the aisle. And that's why we're not getting anything done. We need to elect people who are members of their community. That's what the House of Representatives is for. So they can go into Congress and they can speak from first-person interest, first-person experience as somebody with shared values, shared life experiences, who has weathered the same storms, both literally and figuratively, in the halls of the Capitol, and that's what I bring. I will bring an authentic South Jersey voice into Washington, D.C., one that puts South Jersey first, not mega donors, not corporations, but the people of South Jersey who for too long have been struggling. Thank you.
And then finally, our last candidate, Mr. Bailey Winder.
Thank you so much to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you, President Shabazz. Thank you, Christian, and the NAACP. I'm grateful to share this stage with you as we have 11 days to go until June 2nd. My name is Bailey Winder. I live in Mays Landing. I'm a fourth-generation New Jerseyan. My career has been about public service. My grandparents were in the military, the State Department, and the CIA. I took my first oath of the Constitution working at the State Department on Iran policy. I never expected when I launched this campaign that we would now be in a war with the country I used to work on, where our gas prices are going through the roof, where farmers cannot afford fertilizer, and we're all paying more for food, where members of our military are being put in harm's way, some of them paying the ultimate sacrifice. Tens of billions of dollars towards a war that does not make sense when we have issues here at home we should be focused on. I was an advisor to the FBI. I worked at a small business, and most recently I served at USAID, working on humanitarian work around the world before it got torn down by Elon Musk and Doge. That work was about lifting people up, with the idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. Humanitarianism is something we have lost in our politics today, because politics today, it's about a select elite few. Donald Trump, Jeff Van Drew, they say this is a golden age for America right now. I don't know about you, it does not feel like a golden age to me. It might be a golden age for tech billionaires, but the reality is working families are getting squeezed in every single direction, with gas, with groceries, with utilities, you name it. Politics is absolutely broken, it is absolutely corrupt, and we need to pass the baton. We need new energy. Jeff Van Drew, he won't do town halls. He is too much of a coward to do them. So we do them without him. We've done 9 so far on this campaign. And what I think this moment is most about is connecting with people on a human level. I spoke with a member of the American Legion here in Atlantic City a while back, who's almost 90, and he told me, I never thought I would live to see America look like this. I go to food banks and I see volunteers and members of the community stepping up to feed their neighbors because the federal government is failing them, because SNAP is being cut by Jeff Van Drew. So we need to get our priorities in order. We need to focus on putting South Jersey first, not the White House, not corporate PAC money. Entrenched politics, it is not working. And yes, both parties are to blame. But I believe that if we come together as a community, this is a year where we can flip a seat that is hard to flip. We can make that push together, and I look forward to talking with you more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, all candidates. Before I go further, I want to say, when you do see Mr. Johnson raise his hand, you don't have to stop immediately. That's 30 seconds you have. I've seen everybody quickly stop, and I said, no, we got 20 more seconds. Forget what I just said, all right? I got glasses on, but they have no prescription in them, so we're going to talk about Medicaid and everything else after this. Yeah, just for vanity here. All right, so we heard, and first I want to thank you all. You all eloquently shared your why. You shared why you're sitting in that seat. You shared your why with that group, with this group. I would like to kind of dive deeper and to get you all individually to tell us why you are the candidate of choice to take this role, using the why that you shared as the foundation. And I'm going to start with Mr. Bailey, if that's okay, and we'll work our way back.
Is it the same amount of time?
Yes, I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
Got it.
And don't pay me no mind when Mr. Johnson raises his hand.
Well, I think part of, again, what we need to recognize about this moment is that we cannot keep doing the same thing. We have to make a push, and we have to pass the baton. The Democratic Party, it's gotten out of touch. Frankly, Democratic Party leadership, I don't think they're very connected to you and I. I think it's time for change there, and I think it's time for change down here. And in our campaign, we do town halls, we go to Dem clubs, we go to candidate forums. We also go and talk to people out in the community who don't want anything to do with politics, because the reality is that is most people right now. Most people have no interest in going to a political event, and I can understand why. Because life is hard, because the headlines are insane, and because they're fed up. So we have sought to reach people and show up where they haven't been touched by politics in years, maybe even decades. One thing I love to do is go stand outside of a grocery store and ask people what they think about politics, not even in a partisan way. It's not about left versus right. It's about listening first and talking second. And we've spent the last almost 1 year doing this. And what I've seen over that campaign is that the mood is changing with people because it's gotten so extreme. My experience in government has taught me that the government, believe it or not, can actually get things done. I know it's hard to believe, but it's possible. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of government, and I've had the privilege of being in the room where decisions have been made on the national level, with lives on the line. Working on national security, working on programs that have saved millions of lives and delivered billions of dollars of funding. That's a privilege, and it's an oath I take seriously. And I've worked with Democrats and Republicans to do it. So I'm someone who's going to be able to hit the ground running on day one. I don't need the training wheels. We've called attention to topics that are bipartisan. whether it's the corruption with members of Congress trading stocks and taking corporate PAC money, whether it's the need for term limits, or what's happening with our nature here at the shore, in the Pine Barrens, the fact that our environment is under attack. But the Democratic Party needs to push new messaging, and part of that is about shaking things up. I have been most impacted, I think, by the stories I've heard from folks because the lecturing, it's got to stop, right? And I've been honored to be endorsed by a host of local, statewide, and national organizations. We have worked to get this race on the map nationally because with the redistricting right now, this could be the seat that flips the House. That is a responsibility that we all have right now. I too appreciate our democracy, but the reality is our democracy right now is under attack every single day. Black voters, gerrymandering, voting rights being taken away. We can push back and do our part, and I think our coalition that we built in this campaign can make it happen together with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the question was, why me? And what about my why makes me the best candidate to win this seat and defeat Jeff Van Drew? I'm not like any of the other candidates that have ever been put forth against Jeff Van Drew over the last 3 times that he has run. I'm not a polished politician. Half the time, not even a really good public speaker. But the thing that I have is I have grit, I have determination, and I'm a member of the working class that has been hurt by the policies that have been enacted in Washington, D.C., like many of the people who are watching and living in our district. I can speak from firsthand experiences as to how Social Security cuts hurt our seniors because I went through it with my mom and my dad, who only earned $600 a month in Social Security, and he thought he was like the big breadwinner. Medicaid, how that affects. Education, how it is, what the standards are for kids who have mental health issues. For workers that don't earn a living wage. For women who aren't given the same rights as men, whether it's for health care or for working. That's something Jeff Van Drew hasn't gone up against before. I am not bought by politicians or millionaires. I'm not supported by the political elite or the party machine. I'm a member of the citizenry of this district. I know every single inch of it. I've been traveling it through my entire life, whether it was for school, for work, or with family and friends. What is causing dissatisfaction here is that the system is broken and we keep going on the same hamster wheel where every 2 years we talk about the same important things over and over and over again and nothing gets done. One of the things I did in my career and being a caregiver for my mom is I couldn't just push things off to the next one and wait for something else to happen. I had to come up with those solutions. I had to make sure that they worked and that they were going to work for a while. And if they didn't, find my resources and build my relationships so we could make life better. And that's what I want to do, is I want to make life better for the people in our district. And I know that my background and intimate connection with every single aspect of it makes me the best candidate to do that. Thank you.
So what distinguishes me from the other candidates is obviously experience. I've done this before. A lot of people will use the fact that I've run before as somehow a slight, and I take it as a badge of honor because in my household, we learned if you get knocked down, you get back up and you fight again. And if you get knocked down again, you get your butt up and you fight some more until you win. And for me, I grew up in public housing. I have been at every end of the spectrum except rich. Someday, brother. But the bottom line is, I understand people. When 2021, when I first launched my first campaign, I got into the communities, even the communities I already knew. And I start listening to people, and I start crafting a policy. And one of the things that distinguishes me, again, is that every single one of my policies has a method to pay for it without increasing taxes. I built on that. When the second time I ran, we realized I was pushing more of my agenda and not the people, so we did a listening series, meaning I never left the communities. The chief complaint is that you only come around when it's time to run for office. In some instances, you only show up when it's time to run for office. You have to be a part of the community. You have to have proximity to the communities. And you have to listen and be able to sympathize and empathize with people. Because and it's easy when you've had the same experiences. As a young man, before I was in law enforcement, I was literally shot at and beat up by the police and arrested for a crime I did not commit. And my grandfather told me as I was going through the criminal justice process, he said, you did nothing wrong, you have nothing to be ashamed of, keep your head up high. And here's the thing, if you really want to make change, get inside and make change from within. Become a police officer. And that put me on a pathway to becoming a police officer. I did it for 27 years, retiring a captain of detectives right here in Atlantic County. I didn't stop with that. I then picked up a law degree in my travels and decided I'm going to be a prosecutor. I didn't like prosecuting cases because I felt as though we always talk about the law enforcement aspects of racial bias, but we never talk about the bench. And I would present cases exactly the same set of facts as a previous case. The difference is one defendant's white and one is black, and I would see the white person not get jail time, and the black people go to jail, and they even had a lower score because we use a scoring system. So that's when I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he said, you belong in civil rights, and that's how I started. And having the advantage of being in civil rights also gives me advantage here because I study the Constitution. I know how we're going to make changes to the Voting Rights Act. I know how we're going to make changes. We hear the conversation about overturning Citizens United, and I have to tell people all the time, you can't do it through legislation. You could do it through a constitutional amendment, or as it stands today, the states could have done it from day one. So the bottom line here is I have the experience, I have the connection, and I have the base, the name recognition more than anyone else. And I'm the only one who's won this race district-wide in the primary in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you again. I'm the only candidate who has won an election and held public office. So the last 3 elections I've won in Cape May County, and I've been the mayor of Cape May. Not an easy place for a Democrat to win in Cape May County. But I'm proud of the work that we've done, and the way we've done that, hey, can you still hear me? Okay. The way we've done that is by working with everybody. We have got to bring people into the tent in the Democratic Party. Just remember, we lost the last 2 elections by wide margins. How do we overcome that? We have to invite our independent friends. We have to bring, again, open the tent. But I think that means you have to be able to talk to people on their level. They're tired of hearing Democratic talking points where they feel like we're elitists and we're not talking about the issues that they truly care about, the kitchen table issues that most of us are truly concerned about, and the working family issues that most of us are concerned about. Those are the issues that we in the Democratic Party need to get back into. We need to take back the working class in our country. And because those are the people who should be voting Democrat. Look at the policies that are being pushed by Van Drew and Trump right now that are hurting all of the working class. You know, one thing I'll just mention that just happened a couple days ago. For the first time since World War II in our country, our debt has surpassed our GDP. So now basically our economy is less than our GDP, our economy is less than our debt. And what does that mean? Look at what happened with the Big Beautiful Bill. And as Tim mentioned with the Big Beautiful Bill, 2 things to remember how important your vote is. The Big Beautiful Bill passed by 1 vote, Van Drew's vote. And the war in Iran, the House just voted on, passed by 1 vote, Jeff Van Drew's vote. And you look at the Big Beautiful Bill, giving tax cuts to billionaires, while adding trillions of dollars to our debt. What does that mean? That means that they look at the budget and they say, okay, how are we going to pay for this? Just put the debt on the middle class, give the tax cuts to the billionaires, and you guys will have to pay. And that is what we need to end in Congress immediately. One thing I want to say too that is different about me and to at least one of the candidates is community involvement. That matters. You need to know what your candidate represents and what they're all about. When you hear tonight a lot of canned speeches, what you're going to hear, I hope you recognize that some of it comes from experience and some doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Testing. Can you all hear me? My mic's not working. All right, so next, and I appreciate you all sharing your why. Can I- That wasn't too good either, right?
Not too good, try.
Testing. Yeah, I think I have to hold the cord. Okay, I see it. Me and Mike's have a love-hate relationship. All right, so we heard your why, and I want to go into shaping your vision as you are potentially elected to this position. So these next set of questions are going to be questions as if you were the legislator and how you would respond. And so the first question, if I can start with Mayor Moloch, if it's okay, the first question would be, what is your position on the Department of Homeland Security and ICE?
So, for those of you who don't know, the Department of Homeland Security actually covers the Coast Guard. And I'll get to ICE in a moment, but the Coast Guard has its only training center in the city of Cape May. So actually today I was at an event with the captain of the Coast Guard base in Cape May, and they have a lot of issues that we're going forward with. Actually, they just received $400 million to improve their facility in Cape May, so that's a big project. But also under Homeland Security is FEMA. And that is one of the biggest projects that I have been working on for the last 8 years for my community, is a seawall. We received $25 million in funding. That's working with state, local, and federal government to get things done. And frankly, one of the most important projects for my community. But that is exactly what I'll be working for all of South Jersey. You know, I was over in Salem, and they have a ton of flooding, of course, on the Delaware Bay and on the Delaware River. Obviously, on the shoreline, we have flooding that we need to work on. So I don't want to skip Homeland Security because that's really important. FEMA is very important to our communities. Getting to ICE, I started my campaign with a letter to the mayor of Minneapolis. And in that letter, I talked about how after the murder of Alex Preddy, we were trampling the Constitution. We were trampling states' rights. We were trampling judicial orders. And masked agents going through towns and even going after elementary school students. It was absolutely disgusting and un-American. And what I was reminded of is another president who said, immigrants are what make America great. That president was Ronald Reagan. How far we have fallen from that shining city on a hill. We have fallen so far from that. And what are we just simply asking for? We're asking for respect and dignity. You know these immigrants are in and amongst your communities. They're in our communities. They're all over South Jersey, and they are good people that are just looking for a pathway to citizenship. That is what we need to be working on. We have to majorly reform our immigration system, and yes, we have to majorly reform ICE. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me be really clear and try to answer this question succinctly. It's important to know, as a former law enforcement officer of 27 years, to call ICE law enforcement is offensive. They have 42 days of training. Where to be a police officer in New Jersey today, you have to have a background check, you have to have a medical screening, you have to have a mental health screening, then you have to go through 28 weeks of the academy. Then you have to have 6 to 8 weeks of field training afterwards. And if you want to be a detective investigator, you got to go back for another 8, 12 weeks. So the bottom line is to call these people law enforcement is offensive, and they must be abolished now. So with respect to DHS, I know we're not really talking about all the other programs that they're responsible for. But one of the things I want to do as a former law enforcement officer, as a former prosecutor, is be put in a room with other former prosecutors who are members by the speaker, by way of making a select committee, and let us investigate both the Trump administration for its illegal grift and DHS for every memo, email, and everything in between where they directed these people out on the street to harm American citizens and to terrorize others. It must be done. And at the end of those 2 years, when we have a new president and a new attorney general, we will give those files to that person and we will tell her, go get your indictments, but get them on a state level in case they got some pardons in a safe somewhere. And that way now we're safe to see that people will be held responsible and we can start healing our country for this rift, at least part of it, that Donald Trump has done to us with his own paramilitary jackboot thugs. And I'm not going to quote Ronald Reagan because he was as big as a bigot as they come. And the bottom line is, we are better than all of that. We are better than all of that. And we must stand together to abolish ICE and to hold people accountable once and for all and to send a message. If you're going to do this again in the future, you're going to see what the outcome's going to be. Right now, the head of the Proud Boys, I don't know if you know this, he was serving time for his shenanigans on January 6th, where he was beating up police officers, got a pardon from the president, and made an ICE official. That's why they're not law enforcement. That's why they'll never get any respect. And that's why they need to be abolished, period. And I know we have a lot of time on this, but I think it's clear, as President Shabazz said, you need to hear this 3 times. They have to go. They have to go. They're destroying our country. So I will do everything I can to get the Speaker to form that committee, to get myself appointed. I've already talked to Congressman Meeks. He's a former prosecutor. He wants to be on it too. So we could build from there and make this happen. Thank you.
So answering as to what I would do is, though, if I am the elected congresswoman for this district, the first thing we need to do is have robust oversight hearings and hold every single person accountable in both Homeland Security and ICE for the illegal actions that they had instituted since day one here. We also need to look at the budget appropriation and reconciliation of it, of what they've been doing in those 2 different departments, because we don't have a money problem in this country or a priorities problem. And right now what they're doing is they're funding both of these different departments in order to terrorize people instead of to actually help people. And that's what the role of government's for, is to make life better for their citizens and to protect them. So we're not going to take anything away in terms of making sure that people are safe and protected, but we're going to do it the right way. With immigration, $170 billion that has been allocated over the next 5 years in order to militarize our immigration system could be much better spent in a compassionate humanitarian system that allows for a path to citizenship. It's our responsibility as well to investigate the reasons why and our part in mass migration and terrorism against the United States. Our country, over the past 100 years or more, has been responsible for destabilizing regimes and economies of other countries and not had any responsibility for it, and that is what has caused a lot of the issues that we see today. Those need to be addressed as well. Thank you.
There's no doubt that ICE is out of control right now. And ICE is out of control because they report to the White House, and the White House thinks it can do whatever it wants. Congress has so much power, they just choose not to use it. Because Jeff Van Drew thinks his boss is Donald Trump, not you. ICE is right now operating in a way where they are undermining local law enforcement, and we should invest in local law enforcement. They know their streets, they know their neighbors. These agents, they are making things worse. There is no doubt about it. Families are afraid to go to church, to go to school, to go to work. Windows being smashed, people being shot without accountability. So Congress needs to start asking questions and saying, no more funding until you make huge changes. These agents, they think they have total immunity. That doesn't exist in our Constitution and in our legal code. It only exists right now, because we don't have checks and balances. And we have had an immigration problem in this country for a long time. It's been broken. Our healthcare system too. We have to get to the root cause of the issue here. $170 billion budget for ICE with no accountability is not the path forward that makes sense for fixing this. But it is not an either or also. We can have a secure border and we can treat people in a humane way, in a way that respects their rights and their dignity and presents a path forward. Because right now, for a lot of people, they are trying to do this process the right way, but they don't have that option. They don't have that ability. So yes, we need to put funds towards actions that will actually solve the issues instead of just fanning the flames of hate and of danger in our communities. And we need to recognize that it cannot be an immigration system that is based on a White House that wants to protect their culture. A White House that thinks of the U.S. as a place where only certain people have the same rights they do. People from certain countries, certain cultures. That is un-American, and it is offensive to every single one of us. So the reality is that it cannot go on just like this, where Congress shrugs when another person is afraid to leave their house to go into their community, people who are working hard, who are not committing crimes. There's a way to solve this, but it cannot happen if ICE goes on, and the reform needs to be sweeping. It cannot be Band-Aid solutions. It has gone too far. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question before I invite my colleagues up to ask a couple rapid-fire questions as we conclude tonight. But this question is very dear to me as someone who works in healthcare, someone who works every day arduously in the community, getting people screened, making sure people have access to care. What will you do in the role to make sure and to continue to keep the foot on the gas to make sure people have access to healthcare? With all the talks around cuts, all the talks around people not having prescriptions, and even just looking at the higher rate of cancer diagnosis in certain demographics, if you are elected, what will you do to make sure that the people that you serve, will have access to care? Actually, we can start back again here, man.
Oh, here we go. Well, first off, I support Medicare for all who want it. And I think that is really important. We are the richest country in the world, and yet we have millions of people uninsured and underinsured. So yes, I support Medicare for all who want it. If you want to keep your private health insurance, go for it. Fine. You have enough money to do that, fine. But I support Medicare for all. And I think the first thing we do, though, when we get into office after November, after we win the election and beat Van Drew, we restore the ACA subsidies. If you don't know what ACA is, that's basically Obamacare. And so the big, beautiful bill took away those subsidies. Those subsidies need to be restored right away. That's thousands of dollars for most people, thousands of dollars. And it's going to cause chaos within our country. We already know the cost of living is skyrocketing. After November, it's going to be even worse. And I think when it comes to healthcare, and thank you for what you do, one of the things I do in working with Atlantic Cape Community College is supporting the nursing program, which is so important. And you mentioned the environment. That is an important role. And right now, we have Van Drew and Trump rolling back restrictions on oil and gas. And we've seen the history. We know what happens. Right here in New Jersey, there are clusters of cancer because of deregulation on oil, gas, and other chemical companies. And often it is in minority communities. It is wrong, and the fact that we're still doing that today is absurd. And last thing I just want to say about Medicare for All is that, of course, that covers the entire body. That covers mental, that covers vision and dental. And, you know, as mayor of Cape May, we increased the insurance for our employees. This is something I worked on for many years, millions and millions of dollars. I worked on this very specifically for our employees. Before I was mayor, they did not have dental and vision. Now they do. They have better coverage and less expensive coverage. And I'm really proud that I have worked tirelessly to make sure that the people I'm responsible for have good health care coverage. Thank you.
So you could go to my website, timalexander4congress.com, and you'll see the details of my plan. But in sum, it is to allow everyone to buy into Medicare at any age. And I use myself as an example where my wife and I pay about $1,600 a month for health insurance. That's not including our dental and eyeglass. We pay that on a quarterly basis. So when we ran a model, we created and ran a model of how that compared to Medicare, the first thing it told us is we have to roll in all the subsidies into one. A through D has to become one plan. You have one body, one plan. Then we ran the numbers, and it showed that Anna and I would be paying a little bit more than half of what we're currently paying. Then we ran it for my 38-year-old daughter and my 36-year-old son, and we kept going down to my 35-year-old daughter, and each time it was less and less. So it's a no-brainer for me. And what was the outcome? The benefit was that Medicare becomes stronger. And eventually, over about 10 years or so, people who are 64 and older don't have to pay any additional money for Medicare. And that, to me, was the telling tale right there, that we are pandering to insurance companies when it comes to health care in this country. And when I pitched this idea to another Congress representative, that person told me, you're going to have lobbyists from the health insurance down and around the corner from your office. And I said, they'll wait there all day. We'll treat them better than Georgia. We'll give them some water and some sandwiches. Because we're not going to yield on this. This takes courage. It takes conviction, but it also takes that you've experienced it. You know, not being born with a silver spoon in your mouth makes you have to earn things and understand things and figure out how you can work and make things better. And that is the sole purpose of a person in Congress, except for Jeff Van Drew, who doesn't seem to get it. And if we're working for this and we can make this happen, it's going to improve lives. But day one, the first day in office, I expect that we're going to have a blue wave in November. But if we're blessed with a blue tsunami and we have a veto-proof House, we repeal the we repeal the one big ugly bill. I had to change that because I'm in church. But the bottom line is we can do that. It takes conviction, it takes courage, and not to fear Donald Trump. If Donald Trump could dump all the money he wants in this district, Jeff Van Drew is still Jeff Van Drew. And so he's not going to, I don't care how many people he make aware of him, he's not going to have anything, he does not have anything that he can run on and be proud of. He's got 2 bills passed in his name only, renaming post offices. So that's a pitiful, pitiful person to be your representative, and that's why we got where we are with respect to that one big ugly bill, and we must repeal it, and then we must tackle health insurance and make it affordable for everybody. Medicare for all is the first step in doing that.
So as you heard from my opening, healthcare is extremely important to me and always has been. One thing you didn't hear from me is that it's been a part of my life, my entire life, because my mom was the supervisor of the operating room right at Atlantic City Medical Center, right down the way there. So I am a proponent of the first thing we need to do once we get into Congress is reverse the horrible actions of the One Big Beautiful Bill so that we reinstate the ACA subsidies as well as removing the work requirements on Medicaid. Because health insurance is a human right. It shouldn't be based on your job. It shouldn't be based on where you live. It shouldn't be based on how much money you have. And that's why I'm a supporter of Medicare for all on the pathway to universal health care. It needs to be comprehensive, where it covers the entire body, eyes, teeth, ears, but also robust mental health, because we have a mental health crisis in this country, and we don't talk about it enough. We also need to make sure that women have access, and men, to full reproductive health care covered by health insurance. And then long-term care, so our seniors can age with dignity, regardless if they want to stay at home or if they wish to go to a facility. But it also needs to be equitable. We do know from studies that communities of color have a lower mortality rate across the line that white communities do, and that's not fair. It's not right. We also know that women's health care has been severely underfunded and under-researched compared to men's health care. My daughter likes to tell me all the time, you know why Telenor doesn't really work on you? Is because it works on men and we're different. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And that's one of the things we need to do. It needs to be equitable across the board. And to speak to what Christian had said is, with all the diagnoses with certain demographics and cancer and all of that, all the research that was taken away with the One Big Beautiful Bill and DOGE, that needs to be reinstated. We have some of the best research facilities in the world here. Why aren't we using them? Why aren't we funding them to make sure that life is better for everybody, not just the super rich? As I said again and again, we don't have a money problem, we have a priorities problem, and it's time for the priority to stop being giving tax breaks to corporations and millionaires so that they can continue to get the $70 trillion they have over the last 50 years at the expense of the working in the middle class. As again, healthcare is a human right, and I'm a proponent for these policies to move forward into true universal healthcare, since we are the only developed nation in the world that does not offer that to its citizens.
Well, I do support a pathway to universal healthcare coverage. I think at the same time, the most urgent issues right now are restoring funding for Medicaid, $1 trillion cut to Medicaid from the big beautiful bill that is devastating South Jersey and the country. Making sure that Medicare is comprehensive with dental, hearing, and vision, restoring ACA tax credits, and strengthening the ability of the government to negotiate drug prices. If you all might remember, during the Biden administration, there was a big push to cut down the price of insulin. That worked pretty well. That same pressure should be applied to other drugs, because the reality is big pharma companies, they're making record profits. They're also donating to campaigns of these politicians, and these politicians are trading their stocks. So the corruption is a piece of that as well. We need to also have a VA system that is funded. It is disgraceful that veterans do not get the care that they deserve. They have sacrificed so much, and there are 35,000 plus in this district. The VA has been gutted under Jeff Andrews' watch. So I'm in favor of making sure that the VA has the funding that is required to treat veterans with respect. And women's health care right now is absolutely under attack. We do not need a bunch of men in Washington telling women what to do with their bodies. That is not acceptable. We should codify Roe v. Wade. We should make sure that the legal system that right now is represented by extremists trying to take away medicine for women's health cannot stand. And we do need to look at the fact that the data shows us here in Atlantic City and around the country, there is a lack of equity. If you look at the rates of mortality for new black mothers here in Atlantic City, we need to have a healthcare system that works for everyone, not just part of the population, not just the part of the population that is powerful and connected to members of Congress. We need to make sure it's comprehensive and respectful of the diverse community that we have. The last thing I'll say is I worked at USAID. We did global health work there. Right now, we're in a moment where we might have an Ebola crisis in our country. Think about that. Part of the problem is that we're not talking to the world about healthcare. And health crises, they do not know borders. We know that from COVID. So we need to restore funding for that kind of work so that we can have that relationship with other countries to coordinate, to make sure that we can protect our citizens before it becomes a more expensive and deadly crisis here at home. The fate of us is intertwined when it comes to healthcare. It's not just about one city, one district, one state, one country. We have to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward into the last portion of our program, where we're going to have some rapid fire questions, and these questions, or the answers, will be 2 minutes. And so I am going to bring up my NAACP colleague, Dr. Sarhan. She was going to come up and ask a couple questions, and then following her. Yes, so Dr. Sarhan, and then Reverend Miller, and then Mr. McQueen. So, all right, so Doc, you're up.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you to all of our candidates for being here. My name is Miriam, and I'm a proud NAACP member. I've been a member since 2020, and we do appreciate your time and exercising your civic duty to be here. My first question for you today is, how would you protect District 2's coastal communities from flooding, extreme weather, rising insurance costs, and other related threats? We'll start with Mr. Moloch.
So I've been doing this for the last 8 years as mayor, and It's something that I'm proud of, the work that we've done. Like I said before, we have gotten $25 million for one seawall project. Right now, we are doing another $8 million project through a state grant on another portion of the seawall. But I got to tell you, one of the, how long do we have? I'm sorry. 2 minutes, thank you. One of the projects that I'm very proud of is through the infrastructure bill, which was passed by, obviously, Joe Biden in a bipartisan manner. That made so many local mayors look like heroes. It did so much good work. Removal of lead pipe, something that we don't think about, but it affects our daily lives and our drinking water. Gave money to water plants. It gave money to us in our desalinization plant. It helped replace a lot of storm drains. And where we have flooding along the coast, especially here in Atlantic City, we need to engineer our way out of this. Yes, we need to fix the climate change issue. And again, that is something that I'm working with the Cape May Point Arts and Science Center. We actually have Rutgers has a meter on the sea level rise at the Science Center, which is a wonderful program. But as mayor, we have tackled this issue, and what I've seen is what works. The infrastructure bill worked. It gave people the opportunity to take care of the actual issues. Now that it's expired, most of the funding has gone away. You're seeing now, look at the roads. Okay, we know what the roads look like. A lot of that money is gone. And Trump and Van Drew are no longer funding that. We need to fund our infrastructure or we'll never be able to fix the flooding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So, as I said earlier, we repeal the one big ugly bill that restores beach replenishment money right out of the gate, which, by the way, Van Drew voted to end in his own backyard. But there was a study done by New Jersey a few years back that calculated the problem from Monmouth County down to Cape May County for beach erosion. And it came up with suggestions of what can be done. And it seems as though because nobody could agree on what we could do, we did nothing. So I want to bring that study back out. And there are, even though Trump has killed anything with Biden Obama's name on it, including the infrastructure bill, he impounded all the money, which means it's no longer there. But he's not the smartest guy you want to meet, and that there are 2 additional infrastructure funding packages that we could tap into. So if we don't immediately get the one big ugly bill repealed, we could carve out the provisions and fund it through those infrastructure packages. They're there, they're replenished every year through the budget. And we could fight for that money to come back to New Jersey, particularly South Jersey, and help us save our communities. It's not just about protecting multi-million-dollar homes on a boardwalk. It's about the water that comes in and attempts to meet the bay in Atlantic City, and it wipes out everything in between. It's about wiping out homes blocks away from the ocean. We have to realize that this is an issue for everybody. It is not just for the uber rich, and we must act accordingly with all due haste. So by tapping into that infrastructure money, we can get these things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So one of the things we know is that for every dollar we spend in any kind of preventative or proactive measures saves us $1.75 in repair work. So one of the things that we would do is reinstate the beach replenishment funding that was eliminated from the One Big Beautiful Bill, but not only to focus on beach replenishment, but also flood mitigation techniques, the dune replenishment, and also protecting our low-lying coastal areas throughout the entire district, because we have flooding everywhere in this district. Partnering with the Army Corps of Engineers for plans that can ensure that our coastal areas and low-lying areas are not consistently being impacted by storms, and making sure that any FEMA funds are equitably distributed to areas in need and not politicized and held back. But the one thing we need to do is we also need to address the causes of this, which is climate change. Eliminating the fossil fuel subsidy so that we can put that money towards and require them to fund renewable energy sources so we can stop the damage that the fossil fuel industry is doing to our environment, and we can invest in renewable energy that will be better for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Winder, 2 minutes.
Well, FEMA right now is on the chopping block, and the Trump administration is looking at potentially cutting its workforce by 50%. Here's the reality. Heaven forbid the next time there's a Hurricane Sandy in our area, the cost of repairing that with human lives, with billions of dollars, will be that much worse if your member of Congress doesn't have your back when it comes to FEMA. We need to make sure that it is funded. It is a smart investment. It is the right thing to do. Doing replenishment, Jeff Van Drew, he took a page out of Donald Trump's playbook. He created a problem, failed to get funding for the first time in almost 30 years, and then he walked around and said, look, I'm here to save the day. He should have done his job in the first place. When you're a member of Congress, your leverage is your vote, and you have to use that leverage to bring federal investments into your community, whether it's infrastructure, healthcare, sustainability, you name it. That is your job. We also have to recognize that I think there's a way to make the case around sustainable action that is not just about protecting the environment, because that matters, but the reality is right now, life is unaffordable. Another piece of this is an investment in making our energy bills lower, in making it clear that we can have sustainable future here in South Jersey and a future that decreases the pressure on our pocketbooks by investing in clean energy programs, having clean energy tax credits. Right now, Jeff Van Drew, Donald Trump, we're going backwards. We're doubling down on old energy that is dirty and that is inefficient. We should be doing the opposite. But Congress needs to start pushing, because the reality is this White House will not do it willingly. I also just want to say that we started a war with Venezuela for oil executives, for their profits and their bank accounts. We should have a system where our energy concerns are about working families, not about big corporations. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. What role should Congress play in housing affordability? Mr. Mullick, 2 minutes.
There we go. Okay. First, we need to end hedge funds from being able to purchase thousands of homes at a time. That is massively increasing the price of housing. And again, this is another issue where I'm not just talking about canned speeches that I've memorized. This is something that I have done and been involved with directly. The Cape May Housing Authority, we are working on close to a $40 million project to help increase housing in Cape May, which is it was not an easy thing to do. I have experienced the red tape and bureaucracy that is exactly what I will take on in Congress. It is stopping municipalities that want to build homes from actually building them, and it's disgraceful. So in Congress, that'll be one of the first things that we work on, because we know that housing is the backbone of the middle class. Yes, after the Great Depression, what were the things that helped build the middle class? Housing and energy. Two things that Van Drew and Trump are absolutely failing on. And that is why the middle class is shrinking. So we need to take bold action on renewable energy and on housing. And I propose that we need to build houses on massive scale. In fact, I remember after Hurricane Katrina, I was in college at the time. We went down to Musicians Village in the lower 9th Ward, the worst place that was hit. And we worked on homes. And you could see government actually working together with nonprofits, building and getting things done. We need to do that on a massive scale to help build the middle class. Thank you.
Mr. Alexander, 2 minutes.
Thank you. No, you're good. So listen, I grew up in public housing. 799 Southeast Boulevard, Vineland, New Jersey. It was a HUD house right in front of the railroad tracks. Train came by every morning from 2:45 to 5. But that was our home, and we were very proud of it. And the program was this. My mom won the lottery, and the lottery allowed her to be a recipient of one of these homes that were being built at the time. And the rent was based on your income. And my mom was working 2 jobs, and so she was able to get us in. The program requires you to take classes to take care of the house. Because she was working 2 jobs, 14-year-old Tim was in the basement taking those classes. And those skills transferred for me when I purchased my first home. The program took part of her rent for the first 5 years, and they put it aside for a down payment for a mortgage. After 5 years, she qualified for a mortgage. My mom purchased her home, and she owned it till she retired and moved down to Georgia. And it's a beautiful little house. Now, a friend of mine is the mayor of Logan Township, and he's putting affordable housing in his town that's gorgeous, front, back, and inside, not just fake facades. So we take those two aspects, the program that we benefited from and the style of the houses today, and we do it all over the country. And we create competition for the builders and for the landlords. And competition is going to drive down costs, but at the same time, the benefit is we get more people into housing. And we have to change what it means to be low income in this country. $100,000 for a family of 4, it means they're barely making it. So we have to raise those numbers up so more people can qualify, and we need to stop excluding young people without children. Let's give them an opportunity to get in there as well. Maybe they don't get priority, but eventually they get to have the opportunity for these houses too, and a pathway to home ownership. So for me, it's about modeling what I learned from my experience growing up in public housing and imitating that, but making it much better, more affordable housing for everybody. Thank you.
Ms. Reese, 2 minutes.
Thank you. The one thing we can do in Congress is to start reining in the predatory purchasing policies that Zach had mentioned as well, and the predatory lending practices that we know that happened and caused the housing bust in 2008 that could certainly happen again with the cost of housing today. We also need funding to increase supply to meet the demand for housing, and it's truly affordable housing, not what I'm calling low-income housing, but affordable housing that meet the wages that people are being paid, which means we need to raise the wages because $15.92 is not enough for somebody to purchase a house, per hour, I should say. And those houses, those supply what we need to build, they don't need to be mega mansions. I've said over and over again, down the street from where I lived in Northfield, they put up these beautiful townhomes that they said at the nice low price of $789,000. I don't know how many young people can purchase a $789,000 condo in Linwood. You know, they talked about here in Atlantic City that where Baderfield was, they were going to build beautiful, large, very expensive homes and condos and an F1 racetrack. Well, that doesn't do anything for the people of Atlantic City. Do we really need more homes to attract millionaires to come and live here for a week or a weekend when we really need homes for everyday people? We also need to cap and look at what the rent prices are, because rents are as much as mortgages in some cases, and there needs to be a moratorium on what rent prices are, and look at that as to how much people are being paid. Using investment in multi-use construction. Where my son lives in Virginia, the vast majority of the area where he lives have businesses on the first floor and apartments on the second, and they're in a major transportation hub where people can get to work if they don't have transportation. Thank you.
Mr. Winder, 2 minutes.
If you ask a student today in high school or college, when do you think you'll be able to buy a home? They might say 40, 50. They might say never. To a lot of young people today, home ownership is fully out of reach. Here are some things we can do. Property tax credits that are specifically designed for first-time home buyers, for starter homes. Not for the big luxury homes, but for starter homes. Clamping down on private equity companies that are buying up houses by the tens of thousands, jacking up prices for working families. That's a model that's great for corporations, and it's hard on everyone else. We also need to recognize that tariffs are making it more expensive to build, more inefficient to build. These tariffs are a tax on all of us, and they're making it more difficult for construction to go up. I also think it's important to say that here in Atlantic City, there's been some mismanagement over the years. HUD is involved. There is a role for the federal government to play in supporting local development. And as a member of Congress, part of what you need to do is connect those dots, is listen, not just tell the local bodies what the national government thinks is best, but make sure that the priorities are locally led. And I think that when you look at Atlantic City, the incredible potential that we're seeing right now for new development, the federal government can be a partner in that, can be a supporting partner for Atlantic City, saying, we are going to help you make sure this next chapter is a good one. But this current housing crisis that we're in, a lot of it is about a corporate first mentality. And I think there are a lot of steps that we can take. They're not all going to happen overnight. But this cost of living crisis, it's about taxes, equipment, corporations taking away from working families' abilities, and the federal government being there for Atlantic City as a partner through and through. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next moderator for the evening is Miss Marilyn Kirkland.
Good evening. I'm Marilyn Kirkland. I'm an active member of the local NAACP and a proud granddaughter of West Indian immigrants. How do you interpret 5 dead, including 2 teen suspects, after the shooting at the San Diego Mosque? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mullet first.
Well, I think I've gone for every question. So, obviously, racism, sexism, and any type of bias for someone's religion is wrong. And the extremism that is being pushed, and I'm not going to say both sides, because it's not both sides, but we are seeing extremism pushed by a lot of different people, and it needs to stop. And yes, that starts with leadership. Leadership comes from the top. And what I see in our leadership today is fanning the flames, adding fuel to the fire. You know, we're here in a church, and I am a Christian, and I support separation of church and state very much. I want to make that very clear. But in my religion, we talk about Matthew 23, 25, 31. It's a simple belief. If someone is hungry, you feed them. If someone is a stranger, you welcome them. If they're thirsty, you give them a drink. That was what Jesus said to get into heaven. And I just simply believe that we as a country need to be more compassionate, regardless of religion. And we need to accept people regardless of religion or their sex or anything. We need to welcome people and be more compassionate. And that gets into, you mentioned you were a child of immigrants. What are people asking for? They're simply asking for respect and dignity. That is something that we need to get back to as a country, and again, it comes from our leadership. Thank you.
Mr. Alexander.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm going to be very clear and unfiltered on this one. I lay that violence right at the feet of Donald Trump and everybody who supports him, because he's responsible for that. He's responsible for shootings at other mosques and shootings at churches, black churches, because he has pushed this rhetoric. He has people who are elected officials in both the House and Senate who push the same rhetoric because their dear leader is pushing it. It's a cult-like atmosphere, it's a cult-like attitude. And they believe, those 2 young men, I don't know what was in their head, but from my perspective of imagining, they had to believe that they were doing right, that somehow murdering people because of their religious identification, murdering people because they're protesting against the attacks on immigrants in this country, murdering people, let's go back to Charlottesville when a lunatic drove through a crowd of protesters, murdering people who are having Bible study in Charlotte because of his biased beliefs. And we could go on and on and on, murdering politicians who are Democrats. This is all Donald Trump. He is responsible for every piece of it. It goes to the point of him tearing this country apart.
and he is ripping the fabric of America. And the only way we heal is to hold him and every single one accountable for all the atrocities that they've committed. Thank you.
So while I agree that the current administration has a huge responsibility in what's been happening towards our immigrant communities and mass shootings as a whole, it goes a little bit further back than that to we never fully healed the wounds of the Civil War. And we have allowed it to fester for years and years and years without people who committed atrocious crimes and actions against their fellow human beings to not be held accountable for that. So we see that happening today. We see it happening against immigrants. We see it happening, so what happened with the 5 dead after the shooting in San Diego Mosque, it's an understanding, a lack of compassion, and lack of empathy against your fellow human being. I'm a humanist. I judge people by their actions, their words, how they treat other people. I don't treat them and put them into a bucket with people who did bad things. I only hold individuals responsible for what they do. And that's one of the things that we don't do. Instead, we try and put people into buckets and say, because you are this color, you're this nationality, you're this religion, therefore you're all bad. And that is not true. And we need to get back to showing that and teaching that to our children across the country. But it also talks about mental health, that people can be so easily swayed into believing this about other people. So we need to have, as I said before, a mental health crisis. And then we look at gun control. New Jersey has some of the strictest gun controls in the state. And what I want to do when I go to Congress is implement them nationwide, because we can have common sense gun reform. It's not about taking people's guns away. The first time the first mass shooting happened, we should have been able to say this is enough and stand up for it and not listen to the gun lobby. The fact that we think that it's okay for guns to be in schools, that that our kids should have to practice these drills or have bulletproof backpacks is insane. So it's a number of different levels, but it's all about learning to treat other people as human beings and not as enemies.
What happened in San Diego, it was an unspeakable horror, and it must be condemned universally. Islamophobia is on the rise. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. We have Stephen Miller in the White House talking about protecting our culture. He says our culture, he means a select few in this country. And it is an insult to the American dream, to the American promise. Just a couple days ago, a Democratic candidate in Texas said incredibly anti-Semitic things that are so dangerous. The temperature right now in this country is extremely hot. And part of how we break that down is by listening, is by connecting on a human level. And I'll say, my family's part Lebanese. I've spent a lot of time working on U.S. policy towards the Middle East. So I've seen firsthand how that extremism can play out to take lives, to create a cycle of violence. I've walked around Jerusalem and seen the complexity of that small space with religions competing in some ways that have been so dangerous. We don't need that mentality here in the U.S. And I worked in the humanitarian space at USAID. We could use a humanitarian perspective here at home, one that is about recognizing that we might disagree about policies, but we need to stand together on the basics, which is that people in this country have the right to worship who they want without being threatened by their community and disrespected by a White House that is out of control, that uses faith as a weapon in a way that is totally offensive. Thank you.
Could all of you please reflect on your opinion, President Donald Trump's ballroom project?
I'm first. I was walking out of a meeting the other day, and I said, listen, if we want to win, we have to widen the tent. And I keep repeating that because we have to widen the tent and bring people in. But we may have some trouble with some of those MAGA Republicans. And she said, no, we're not calling them that anymore. We're calling them the ballroom Republicans. I said, you know what, that's pretty funny. I might use that one. So now I am. But you know what? He started out saying I mean, he might have even started with Mexico's going to pay for it. I don't know. But he said it was going to be paid for by donors. Then it was going to be $100 million. Then it was $500 million. Now it's $1 billion. In addition to his $1.7 billion slush fund that he just received from his Department of Justice. So, do I support the ballroom? Absolutely not. And to think that we would be spending $1 billion of taxpayers' money while people are struggling. You know, you go around this whole district and you talk and actually see people, you realize how much people are hurting and struggling all around CD2. And to think that we have a president and a congressman who's going right along with it, who is just fine sending our kids off to war and building ballrooms. It's absolutely obscene. And this is what we have to, this is why we have to win, and this is why we have to take our country back. Thank you.
So, sorry, Zach. The bottom line is this. $76 billion, I think, is in this from private donations to build this ballroom. When this country needs so much, the people of this country need so much because of his own policies, is just abysmal. It's an affront to humanity. And then to ask the taxpayers to kick in $1 billion for security. Well, let me say this to Mr. Trump. This country has been around for 250 years and we never had a ballroom. I think we're fine without one now. Stop wasting taxpayer money. And you can't even tell me that it should cost that much money, period. But because Donald Trump is appointing his friends, his contractor friends to these jobs, including the reflector pool, you know he's getting a kickback. This man is criminal. And that ballroom, all these projects, the arch, they're criminal. And he has to be held accountable. And that's going to be a little tougher because the Supreme Court ruling, but we could get him on the griff. We could and if there's any kickbacks, that's going to reveal itself. So, yeah, I'm against that ballroom. And let me be clear, I find it an affront to humanity. Thank you.
So the ballroom is going in the place where the East Wing used to be, that Donald Trump, as he always does, and works without any kind of accountability and thinking that he owes an explanation to anybody or needs to ask first, tore down without any kind of permission from the people who are responsible for maintaining our historical places. As those of us of a certain age remember what Donald Trump did to Atlantic City when he built his casinos here, this isn't a surprise. He's never been held accountable for any of his bad actions ever in his entire life, and he thinks that he is above the law. And that's where we're getting with this ballroom, which I'm 100% against. Yes, it was originally supposed to be $100 million by his donors. That doesn't mean that it's okay. Then it was going to be $400 million because he needs to make sure that he has a party. That's not okay. And now in the budget reconciliation bill, with it's going to be $1 billion of taxpayer money that the Republicans want to push through without any kind of debate, any kind of consequence, any kind of filibustering going on at all, so they can just get what it is that they want, which is the same process they did with the One Big Beautiful Bill. It is completely illegal. It is against the Constitution of the United States and is against what we are for. The role of government is to protect its people and to make life better for them. Donald Trump is not the only person who lives in this country, although he thinks that he does. And as we well know, everything that he is doing is for his own personal enrichment and the enrichment of his friends. It needs to stop, and Congress needs to take control of this and not allow it to happen.
This ballroom is a slap in the face to working families in America. Gas prices here, they might hit $5 soon, right? Go to the grocery store and look at the price of coffee versus what it was a year ago. Look at our utility bills, and this is what he's worried about. If you look at Trump, he really lights up when he's talking about interior decorating, when he's talking about the color of curtains and putting gold leaf in a room. That is when he is excited and cares. You know when he doesn't care? When it comes to protecting Medicaid and SNAP. when it comes to making sure that we have voting rights in a functioning democracy. That is who he is. And it's the job of Congress to use their power. Honestly, Congress right now, I can't tell whether they're working or on holiday. It's the same thing. They're not there doing anything. But that will change after November when we take back the House, because the reality is Congress controls the budget, not Donald Trump. But he's forgotten that because no one's told him in a very long time. So we can make that change. We can get back to the business of actually using money towards some noble aims to protect working families here in South Jersey and across the country. But this corporate corruption, this idea that Trump and his billionaire pals are what matters, I mean, this is a clear indication of it. And yes, this administration has money for ballrooms and bombs, but it does not have money for schoolrooms. It is offensive, and it has got to stop. So the ballroom, it's a symptom of a much bigger problem, of a disease we have right now, where this White House thinks it can do whatever it wants. That's going to end after November. Thank you.
Finally, we have one more set of questions, and we'll wrap this up. Is Mr. McQueen? Okay, Mr. McQueen's here, and he's going to ask you two more questions, and then we will conclude. And I want to thank you all for attending tonight as well before President Shabazz takes over after these last two questions.
Great, thank you. Before I get started, I want to thank the NAACP, and I'm proud to be a member and having worked with them over the years. My first question is going to be, in your opinion, the Department of Taxpayers' money is being used for a $1.8 billion slush fund. What is your opinion on that? Starting with Mr. Wyden.
Well, that slush fund is a very clear demonstration of what's happening right now, which is we have a system of justice that is there to cater to one man, to Donald Trump and to his buddies. I was a consultant at the FBI, and there I worked with federal agents on law enforcement. Right now, they're making them take lie detector tests and asking them who they voted for in the last election. We have Kash Patel as the head of the FBI. I would not trust Kash Patel to do any job, let alone be the head of the FBI. It is ridiculous. But this slush fund, it's actually something that's creating some pushback within the Republican Party, which that tells you when it's going too far, when Republicans start to ask questions in Congress. But that is where we are. And the reality is that the justice system has been weaponized. It is right now being used by this administration. It's not supposed to be that way. When I was at USAID, we had an office of the Inspector General that was there to push back and question what was happening, to have legal pushback and checks. So we need to apply that. We need to have an Attorney General that answers not to the White House, but to the Constitution. That is who they are there to serve. So this has become a broken system, and the slush fund is really just a clear demonstration of that. And where's the transparency? Where's the accountability around that? How is this money going to be used? Who is going to get it? We don't even know these answers because this is such an absurd idea. It is honestly, it's something you might see out of a parody, publication, but not out of real life headlines. That is where we are. We need justice to actually be focused on serving the Constitution and serving the American people, not on serving a select few who cave every time to this president. Thank you.
So the $1.8 billion slush fund that is going to be used was originally a settlement because Donald Trump was suing the Department of Justice for the IRS for going after and releasing his tax returns, which were released with a bunch of other tax returns. So he wasn't the only person whose tax returns were released and made public. But he took it as a grievance. And because anything that doesn't go his way is a grievance and it's against him, and he sues people, as we all well know. So that's where the $1.8 billion trust fund started. And where it's ending is to be used to for restitution for the January 6th people who attacked our Capitol and attacked police officers as well. Again, because we have a president who thinks that he's above the law, and anyone who supports him is above the law, and no one needs to be held accountable as well. But in addition to this $1.8 billion slush fund that we're looking at, does anybody remember the $10 billion that was taken out of the Treasury for the Board of Peace that Donald Trump put himself in charge of, that wasn't going to be looked over or have any kind of accountability? This is what this man does, and he's done his entire life. It's all about enriching himself and his friends. We need Congress to step in, take back the reins of the budget and all of the money, and really impeach Donald Trump, remove, indict, and convict, and get that money back and put it back into the hands of the people.
So it is 100% illegal. And now let's call it for what it is, right? Because it's 1.8 billion when you round up, but it's really 1.776 billion, 1776, which has been identified with white nationalists, otherwise white supremacists. So Donald Trump has created a slush fund for his white supremacist friends and those who stormed the Capitol, who beat on police officers with flagpoles, who are now been pardoned and are back on the street acting as ICE agents. He created a way for them to enrich themselves, be enriched. So every single penny that is not authorized by Congress needs to be reclaimed. And that deal that he made, where he can't be prosecuted for anything that he or his family has done with regard to IRS, is trash. There is no legal basis for honoring such a deal. You can't. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you a covenant in case you decide you want to commit a future crime. It's not even, it's laughable. It's not even logical. So the bottom line is, once we get control of the House again and we start exercising the power of Congress, we claw back 1 cent that goes out the door that hasn't been approved by Congress, and we start unraveling and undoing all the atrocious things that Mike Johnson and his Congress has allowed Donald Trump to do. Plain and simple.
Thank you. Had some time to think on this. All right. So, I talked about the slush fund, $1.8 billion, a little bit already. But I'll say a few more things. As Terry just said, this was off the basis of releasing the president's tax returns. Presidents have been releasing their tax returns for decades. This is something that has been happening as a standard of being the president. People knowing what you do financially, which is important in all of our candidates up here as well. And that's going to insurrectionists. People who injured 90 police officers, killed a police officer, and 4 police officers have committed suicide since that day. Think about that for just a moment. And then, as was said, immunity for him and his entire family. What kind of deal is that? How do you even bring that up to a judge? I'd like to ask you, yeah. And but this is a pattern. The Bitcoin. Our president has his own meme coin that people can buy into. It's corruption right in our faces. Selling pardons. And we just talked about $1.8 million. $1.5 billion was traded in the 5 minutes leading up to the announcement of the war in Iran. Let me say that again. $1.5 billion was traded in the 5 minutes leading up to the announcement of the war in Iran. That is insider trading and war profiteering in one fell swoop. And last thing I'll say is we need people with integrity. So you have to have integrity to be able to battle that. Thank you.
Keep standing. Next question from south to north, the Iran War.
That's it, the Iran War?
Iran War.
Okay. Well, listen, I want to finish one last thing I didn't say. On the insider trading, and I'll use my time, the president has traded stocks every 7 minutes while in office. Every 7 minutes while in office. Again, blatant corruption. The war in Iran. Both of my grandfathers fought in World War II. My father served in the Army. And one of the things that they told me that was so important is our relationship with our allies. Maintaining those relationships, maintaining things like NATO, things that we're now just acting as if it doesn't matter anymore. Those alliances have kept world peace for many, many decades. We went into this war with no clear objectives, without congressional approval. And Jeff, and again, I want to say this, think about how important your vote is. Iran was just passed by the House by one vote. They just had the vote, Jeff Van Drew voted for it, and it passed by one vote, just like the big beautiful bill. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, if we flip this seat, we could end the war in Iran. Your vote matters. Thank you.
So, the Iran war. Let's call it what it was. It's a distraction from the Epstein files, 1. 2, it's market manipulation. Just today, he says, any day now we may strike Iran again, spiking up oil prices. So what is he? He's probably brought a bunch of oil today before he made this announcement, made the announcement, made buku bucks, and as soon as it's at this peak, he'll sell it and then come out and say, we're going to postpone the strike, driving the prices back down again. We've seen it over and over and over again. The idea of following Israel's, or better yet, Netanyahu's belief that Iran is 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon. We've heard this for 20 years, that Iran is 2 weeks away, just 2 weeks away. And never have they developed a nuclear weapon. Don't get me wrong, Iran is our enemy. I'm not friends with them. I don't believe that we should be laughing at these stupid little Lego videos either. But the reality is, they didn't take any overt action against us. We have always been the people to speak softly and carry a big stick. And he has ruined that image of the United States. We are now looking like terrorists, blowing up people who are on boats that could never make it to the United States and off the coast of Venezuela. They would have to refuel 3 times before they got here. But he somehow believed that they're carrying drugs and drugs are killing Americans, so we're going to blow them up. Distractions. Everything is a distraction to keep us from talking about the fact that the President of the United States may actually be a pedophile. All we need is the proof. We got all the allegations. The proof is in those files. So I would beg people, don't be dissuaded or taken off your guard by these actions. Congress has to stop this war immediately, and the money that we're spending on it is atrocious in of itself, and there has to be accountability somehow in that regard as well. Thank you.
So yeah. Oop. Hello, hello. Oh, I think I got it. Okay, sorry about that. So the Iran war, yes, is a distraction, but not only is it a distraction from the Epstein files, but did you notice with Benjamin Netanyahu, it was his decision Trump listened to his advice and not our own advisors in order to go ahead and attack Iran. All right, so now we're no longer talking about Gaza either. I am not for nuclear weapons. I don't think that they belong to anyone after we saw the atrocities that happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Again, I'm a pacifist, I'm a humanist, and I think we do diplomacy. And if you fail at diplomacy, that means you're a failed leader. I also don't think that our military should be put in harm's way just to the military-industrial complex can profiteer off of war. But this is also a cause because Donald Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in his first administration. So it's yet another example of where he creates a problem and then goes in to pretend that he is the great savior of it, and he's not. It was a knee-jerk reaction without any kind of a plan to move forward as to what happens next, or to be able to look and see, if we do this, what is the next possible reaction to our actions. And that's what we saw with the close of the Strait of Hormuz, and that's what we're seeing with the continuing aggressions that are going on across the Middle East. Again, Congress has to take back the power. the War Powers Act, and we need to stop him before he puts us into a nuclear war as a whole.
Who would be surprised if we woke up tomorrow morning to the news that the Trump administration has invaded Cuba? I wouldn't be. It's a real risk because every single day we're playing a guessing game with the U.S. role in the world. And I worked on Iran policy at the State Department. The work of diplomacy, it's slow, it doesn't always work, but it is a lot less expensive and less deadly than starting a war with zero game plan. And I remember standing in the State Department headquarters when the news broke on TV that Donald Trump withdrew from that nuclear deal. We would kill for that deal today. It was not perfect, but it was pretty damn good. It had a lot of restrictions. Right now, the evidence is not clear at all that this war has made America any safer. It certainly has not made life any better for working families here. How much did you pay the last time you filled up your gas tank, right? That is a direct result of this war. This war is a kitchen table issue. And Jeff Andrew sits there, shrugs, and votes blindly with Trump. He doesn't even ask the questions. The role of U.S. foreign policy should be to strengthen us here. We have tariffs, we have trade wars. We're picking fights with our allies. We are making it easier for our competitors like China and Russia to advance in the world. Pulling out, dismantling USAID. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important waterway in the world for energy flow. The Iranian regime has been there since 1979. They're tough. Their military is strong. And by the way, Pete Hegseth has got to go. He is an embarrassment. You're telling me he's in charge of the world's most powerful military? It's a joke. And they're looking at a military budget going up to $1.5 trillion again because Congress is not doing its job. So Congress, ask questions, pull back on the funding for this war, and enough of this nonsense with invading a new country every other day. It's ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for coming. Thank all of you in the audience and all of you on social media. And here we have our president, Councilman Kaleem Shabazz.
Thank you. Okay. First of all, I have a list of thank yous, Christian. I wrote them down. I don't want to leave anybody out. First of all, Bailey Weiner, Terry Reese, Tim Alexander, and Zach Mullock, thank you very much for coming out tonight and presenting yourself. It's not easy to present yourself in front of people and put forth what you want to do to be an elected official, and we will appreciate you. Thank you to those of you who are here in Asbury United Methodist Church. Thank you for taking your time. We know there's other places that you could have been, and we appreciate you taking your time. Thank you to our Facebook listeners who are watching on Facebook, and thank you to WEHA 88.7 and 100.3 FM for carrying this live. Thank you to Raymond Tyler, who is videoing this and also live streaming this, also another dedicated member of the Lang City branch of NAACP. Thank you for all of the members of the Political Action Committee who asked questions tonight, who came, and also, of course, thank you to our very talented moderator, Christian Ragland. Let me also, again, thank Reverend Wilson, who is the pastor of this church, and we appreciate what Reverend Wilson for allowing us to come into his church again. One announcement, one community announcement, and then we're going to have light refreshments that are in the side, and we thank Angel and Reverend Miller for making sure that we have refreshments. Also, thank you to Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson is the best timekeeper on the East Coast. So we're going to hire him again for the fall. Every year since I've been in office, we've had a Memorial Day observance to pay tribute to those people who have died in service to our country. Some people have canceled their Memorial Day services. That's their right because of the weather. But what we have decided to do in Atlantic City, like we did before, is that we're going to have our Memorial Day service in the council chambers. So if you are available Monday, which is Memorial Day, we're going to have our observance at 12 o'clock in the city council chambers in Atlantic City on the second floor. Major, I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Man. It'll come to me. We have a major who is my neighbor, and I hope he's not listening. He's going to say, how can you forget my name? And you're my councilman. No, not Joe Fox. Oh, my goodness. Brian. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Council President. Brian Littlefield, Major Brian Littlefield, who is a retired major in the Army JAG Corps. He's going to be our speaker. We're going to start on time. It's only 12 o'clock. If you can make it, please come. That does it for tonight. Again, thank all of you for coming out. You've heard from 4 outstanding candidates. The NAACP doesn't endorse candidates, but I'll say this, any one of these candidates, in my opinion, would be better than what we have now. Please remember, Election Day is June 2nd. Early voting starts May 26th. You can early vote. You can vote by mail. If you have a mail-in ballot and you haven't filled out your mail-in ballot, that's for people in here and people in the radio, orders, and Facebook. Fill out your mail-in ballot and turn your mail-in ballot in. And we'll make this announcement hopefully later. I hate to say this, but it's true. There are 21 counties in New Jersey. Council President and I was talking about this the other day. The only county in New Jersey that makes the citizens pay for the mail-in ballot is Atlantic County. And we hope, and I say we, the Atlantic City NAACP and the mainland NAACP, we hope to announce that that will be cured for the general election. But for this election, we encourage you, if you have a mail-in ballot, don't take it to the post office. This present administration has messed the post office up. There's no guarantee that if you take your mail-in ballot to the post office, that it will get to the Board of Elections in time for your mail-in ballot to count. So what we are encouraging you to do, if you have a mail-in ballot, take it to the drop-in box, which is free, which is monitored, which is picked up every day by the Board of Elections. So we don't want anybody's vote not to be counted. Again, thank you for coming. Safe trips home. Happy Memorial Day. Thank you to the candidates.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very well done. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.